Dude, what was that? And what are you wearing?
That was a common Vietnamese greeting. And this is common head apparel.
No, it wasn't, and that's a sombrero.
Okay, just forget the hat. But look where we're at. Look around.
What? What are you talking about? We're in the conference room.
Okay, just use your imagination.
Whatever. But you just can't greet them like that, okay?
Why not?
Well, because we're not in Vietnam, this is not a radio show, and you're clearly not Robin Williams.
Well, yeah, I know. I just always wanted to do that. Good morning, Vietnam!
Stop. Why did you do that again?
I didn't like the way it came out the first time.
Well, quit.
Good morning, FBC!
Oh, okay. Stop with the whole good morning. Okay, it's getting annoying. Just say good morning.
That's too boring.
What?
It needs spunk, pizzazz. This isn't some newscast. They expect to be entertained.
No, that's exactly what this is. It's a newscast.
Fine, you do it then.
Good morning, FBC. What? Why are you laughing?
That's it? That's better than good morning!
Okay, stop. Yes, it was way better than that. Pastor said he wanted to give the announcements in a new way.
Yeah, a new way, not an old 1920s way.
Okay, guys, come on, let's hurry this up. I have other things I need to get done.
Oh, sorry. Okay,
Sorry. Okay. Just a quick reminder for everyone to fill out their Connect cards here at FBC. They're on the bottom of your bulletin. And if you are a regular attender here at FBC, just fill in your name. And if you're a visitor today, welcome. And fill out the Connect card, fill out all the information, and turn them into the Information Center after the service. All you have to do is rip it off and, well, you can do better than that, but just turn them into the Information Center and get a free gift. Over to you.
For over a year now, you've been hearing bits and pieces about Walk Through Bethlehem. The two big containers right next to the church garage house the sets. You may be asking, what's this all about? How do we do it? Where will we do it? Who's going to oversee this? Those questions and so many more will be answered August 7th and 8th. Two experts from Florida will be coming down to answer those questions, and all we ask from you is that you set aside Friday evening and Saturday to attend these workshops.
VBS is coming up very soon. Camp Killaman, Jaro. It's August 2nd through the 6th. There is a light supper that starts at 5:30, and VBS starts at 6:30, and it's for all ages, kids through adults. It's an epic expedition through the book of Proverbs, so everyone's invited to come out to that. See your bulletin insert to be able to sign up for that. Also, if you notice on your bulletin insert, there's a sign-up spot for cookies. We really need some people to bake some cookies. That's a need that we'll have for VBS this year. What are you doing?
Well, I'm just eating cookie.
Those are VBS cookies. We're going to need those.
How was I supposed to know that?
Well, VBS. It says it right there.
I guess I chose not to see that.
Well, don't eat any more. We're going to need those.
They're really good.
But we still need more. More than 11 now, because there were 12. But we're going to need more cookies. So sign up in your bulletin insert and turn that into the Information Center. And we'll see you August 2nd. And that is your FBC Weekend Update. This is Jake Roskoff signing off. And don't forget, you don't have to be rich to be generous. You just have to be generous to be generous.
Y yo soy Isaí Jurado. Recuerdan, sean todo lo que puedan, pero mejor.
Hey, we're good to go. Good morning, FBC. Hi, we're here to talk a little bit about fish ministry, and to kind of get us started off, we're going to kind of walk you through a story. And so, my beautiful wife Satomi is going to get us started.
Okay. I'm Satomi Hoban, and I came here about 10 years ago as an international student, and I came here by myself and not knowing family or anybody near. I didn't have family coming with me, and by myself. And I was excited to start life as an international student in college, but at the same time, I had some challenges when I first came here with different languages and culture and different food, many different things. And I felt lonely too. And when I first came here, though, it quickly changed because there was an organization called ISI, International Student Inc. It's an organization to help international students to live life in the way that helps them to find Jesus. And this organization really helped sharing love of Christ with international people. They invited international students over to their house and did dinner, and then we had Bible study, and we had worship time, and we just did so many different activities throughout the college age, and we felt immediately that this is family. I felt like I found a family, and the people who are working in the ministry, they were so joyful. Even though I wasn't a believer, I could see clearly that they love God, and that made me curious. Why do they have so much joy? What's something special that they have? And then they gave Bible to me, and I started reading, and the words came so true to me, and just them allowing God to reach out to the nations through just willing to respond to His calling and touching international students helped me to see who God is clearly in my life, and I decided to follow Christ after that. But anyway, so when I moved here, I was part of the Young Adults Bible Study group, and then I realized that, at the Bible study, there was a question, so what do you do with the gift God has given you? And how are you responding to the calling? And then first I thought about international ministry. There is no international gathering in Marshalltown. And I thought, this will be something that God wants us to do. And I talked with Paula, and then she was willing to do. And we started meeting by prayer for several weeks, months. And then we started making contact with MCC and some other places in town, and soon we had the first international gathering. Anyway, this is just an overview of how it started, and I'm going to pass the microphone to Matthew.
Great. I was wondering if she's going to tell the whole story. So fast forward a little bit. So then in June 2009, we finally got started, and it was a rainy day, and it's kind of funny. God has always really provided for this ministry. Funny thing, because we started in June, which we have almost never found international students in Marshalltown ever since. And we had our first one that day, and we had actually pretty good attendance considering we've never done it before. And but the first person through the door, her name was Victoria. I don't know if many of you remember her. She's been around FBC from time and again for the last 6 years or so. But she was really one of our original core members, because in addition to providing those students that day, God has always provided really core leadership from students at MCC. And that is very important to us, because MCC is just a 2-year school. You know, if you go to university and you have student organizations that are there, students are around for 3, 4, some of us are a little slower, 5 years. And, we're around, when you have students that are around that time, you have time where staff members kind of develop students as leaders in these organizations. At MCC, that's all Spirit provided, It's, you get students that come and they don't really know if they want to be hanging out with us the first year, and then the second year they're bringing everybody that every international student that they ever meet to fish. And we're like, well, it's nice to meet you. Your name was again. So it's just an amazing ministry that way. But for us and our perspective, one of the things that we've had to learn is that there are just 2 years. In some cases, they only stay for a single semester. In many cases, we have people from Fisher that are maybe here for 3 to 6 months to 9 months that are here training that also participate in the ministry. So we don't have a lot of time with these people that are in. And so we really have to understand that we are just a stop on their journey towards Christ. And many of them come from backgrounds that we are Christian number 1, Christian number 2, and Christian number 3 on their list, right? You know, it's interesting. I was remembering this morning when I was preparing for this, you know, the president of China, Xi Jinping, came to 3 cities in the United States during his initial tour, you know, after he became president of China. And one of those cities, Muscatine, Iowa. Why was it Muscatine, Iowa? Because a number of years ago, he came not as an international student, as it turns out. He was actually in a government program at that time to learn how to do farming and those kind of things. But one of the things that he said is, you are the first Americans I ever met. You are America to me. And one of the things that we have to remember that in addition to being those Americans, we are Christ and we are Christians to these people that are coming through. And so, you know, whether we're planting, whether we're plowing new fields or just watching it grow, you know, we don't always get to see the fruit of our labor. But one of the coolest things I think that has happened to us in our ministry since we've been here is, you know, Pastor G signed on last February, right, or that time frame. And Victoria, who was Fish student number 1, was one of his first to be baptized here in this church by Pastor G. So with that, I'll hand it over to Paul.
Just to go along with what he said, God's really been teaching me a lot about my own spiritual growth as we've been doing the ministry for him. At first, I got really disappointed when I didn't see the fruit of our labor. We didn't see lots of people coming to know the Lord. And over the course of the years, God has taught me that the measure of my success as a follower of him is not how many people I can personally bring to the Lord and actually plow the field or the end result. It's actually how well I obey his commands. And he has commanded us to love people. And so through this ministry, I've just seen that is what our main purpose is, to love on these people. And like Matthew shared and Satomi, is the joy that these people can see in us, in the hope that we have, is such a testimony. And so that has been a huge thing that God has been teaching me. But if you could go to there's Victoria, actually, in the bottom left-hand corner. So maybe you had met her. Yep. You can go to the next one now. I'm going to share a little bit. This map is located in the foyer area, so if you want to check it out. It has a picture of just about all the international students or not just students, but also Fisher employees that have come through and stepped through our front door. And so it's been such a joy to be able to meet people from all over the world. So you should check that out when you go out. It's on a table. This is an example of one of the pictures we take. Every time we have a meeting, we take a picture of all of us together. So that's just an example of that. Like we already mentioned, our ministry is really based on building relationships. And so we try to do lots of fun things. So on a typical, we call it Fish at Pish because Matt and my last name is Pishney, and it rhymed, so we say Fish at Pish. We do a number of things. We have a dinner that is provided by people in the community. So different churches and different small groups sign up to bring a meal. And so we eat a meal, and we do some different games together to try to build community and have fun together, break down any cultural walls. So you can see a little bit. We've got ping pong and then another fun game on the floor, and we just hang out and talk. We also have a fish closet. We're hoping to provide not just relational needs and emotional needs and spiritual needs, but also those physical needs. Some come and all they have are a couple of suitcases, and they don't have everything they need for building their dorm room up. So we try to provide what we can, and many of you have donated items that these students then use, kitchen items or coats because they come from a really warm country, microwaves or lamps, things like that. I actually have, we've got these little slips out on the table of ours. Sorry, not in your bulletin. And it has a list of some needs. So if you are interested in giving in that way, that's always much appreciated. If you want to ask us if there's something that we need, or if you have something you think we might need it. We don't want everything that you have that you don't want, because then we have to get rid of it if it's unneeded. But we can give you an idea of some things that are commonly taken. So that's in our basement. You can go to the next. Sometimes we go to special events. The really big group there is Thanksgiving. Every year we have a big Thanksgiving celebration so they can understand what a typical American Thanksgiving looks like. And that's always really well attended. It's so fun because sometimes we have students come back after they've moved on to maybe a bigger university or whatnot, and they come back because we are their family. And it gives me goosebumps just to think about that, because I just love being their family when they're in the United States. So we love seeing who will come back. And sometimes we go to Pella for the Tulip Time Festival, and we make Christmas cookies, or every year is kind of different. But okay, so I want to share a couple of the needs that we have. I already mentioned the fish closet needs with the physical things that they need. But also... we also have another little handout, and it does list some things on there that we need if you want to grab that and sign up. But providing meals, like I mentioned, different groups around the community are awesome, and you guys have been awesome too, bringing meals for us. So that's one way. If you would love to serve with us, that's much needed all the time. These guys like to eat, and they eat a lot, and so yeah, they take home whatever's left over. So we appreciate that. Also, we have started to need a babysitter on fish nights. When we first started the ministry, none of us had kids. It was pretty easy in comparison to what it is now. And so over the years, we've had more little feet running around and getting in the way. But our focus, ideally, is on the students. And so on a fish night, we don't want to have to parent and try to grow relationships. So we really need some babysitters. So if you are interested in babysitting for us during a fish night, that's awesome. You just hang out in the basement and play with them, and that would be wonderful. Also, some kitchen helpers. Like I said, we really like to build relationships with the internationals. So we like to sit down and eat with them. But if we're having to be in the kitchen the whole time and cleaning up or refilling and all that kind of good stuff, then we don't get to build those relationships. So if that's something that you really love to do and be in the kitchen, then we could use your help in that area. Also, if you want to build those relationships, come, and you can do that. And you can build them on a Fish at Fish night, or also, ideally, outside of a Fish at Fish night as well, and take them into your home yourself, have a meal with them. A great statistic I had heard was only, I think it was 80%, or maybe worse than that, was it 90% of internationals that come to the U.S., they never get invited into a home of someone from the U.S., which is crazy to think that they're here and they never get into one of our homes. And as Christians, we really want them in our homes so that we can love on them. So if that's something that God is calling you to, please get involved and invite them into your own home so they can hear from you as well, the love of God. We have a newsletter that we like to send out to people about every 2 months, just to keep you updated, give you some pictures of what's going on, what kind of needs we need, some joys of what God is doing in the ministry. And so if you're interested in receiving that, you can sign up on this sheet for that as well. And I think I just talked to you.
On a busy Sydney street.
Under pressure, come on, you can do this. You can do this. This is your moment. Oh, Sasha, come on. Come on, Sasha, this is your moment.
See what I see. But it won't stop crying out eternity. Can you hear it now? Ringing out across the city, hear the sound like a symphony.
matter what happens, no matter what time bring, you are always like a tattoo in my heart. You know, I will never forget you guys. Okay, you are always in my heart.
Thank you.
Amen. It's a great ministry to be a part of. That's the first time I've learned about it, and so hopefully you enjoyed that as well. And there's obviously lots of ways that you guys can be involved as well. A lot of you have never heard me speak before. The only people that have is the youth group and the search committee, so I'm not going to try to impress you today. I just wanted you to know that. I'm just going to give you a bad one to start off with, but no, I'm just kidding. Actually, some people have said, oh, you played in the band today, and you did some announcements, and you're preaching. Man, you're a one-man show. And I thought, no, you know what? It is a one-man show, but it's about Jesus, isn't it? Wait a minute. Every Sunday is a one-man show. It's always about Jesus. So I hope that I can direct you to love him more today and not be about myself at all. Let's keep praying for Pastor. He's home today. He was asleep when I texted him this morning, so Sharon texted me back and said that he's doing okay. He's still going through rough patches. But just keep praying for him because he needs it. And we want him back soon. I want him back soon. I don't know if you do, but we need to keep praying for him. I want to start off today on a positive note and just tell you this, that life is pointless. It's really meaningless. It's kind of just stupid. And there's really no point of life. So instead of just continuing for the next 30 minutes, why don't you guys just be dismissed, go home, get some lunch, okay? You're dismissed. Whew, I didn't leave. Okay, let me see in the notes. Yeah, they're not supposed to leave. Okay, good. All right, just kidding. Listen, but that's how Solomon starts off the book of Ecclesiastes. So I want you to take your Bibles and turn there. If you don't have a Bible with you today, there's one in the pew in front of you. Grab that and turn to the book of Ecclesiastes. It's a little bit hard to find, but it's right there after Proverbs. Okay, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes. And we're going to read just a little bit of the opening here of Ecclesiastes 1, and we're just going to see how much of a downer Solomon really is, okay? And that's how he started off his message, so I thought I'd start my message off that as well. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, and we're going to read verses 1 through 11. The words of the preacher, that's Solomon, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What does man gain by all the toil at which he toils under the sun? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hastens to the place where it rises. The wind blows south and goes around to the north. Around and around goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. All things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. And there's nothing new under the sun. You can almost hear his voice. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new? It's already been in the ages before us. There's no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after. Wow, what a Debbie Downer. He does not enjoy life at this point. But guess what? I think at some point we've all felt that way. Maybe you're feeling that way today. Hopefully this message will be an encouragement to you. But maybe we have felt that way before. The sun goes up, and guess what? Tonight the sun goes down. Big deal. Tomorrow, the sun comes up, and the sun goes down. All the rivers flow into the ocean, but the ocean doesn't overflow. Whoop-de-doo, right? We live, we die. Big deal. We try to be happy at times. We take up hobbies. We play sports. We go on vacations. We watch TV. We watch movies. Big deal. In the end, what does it really matter? That's kind of what Solomon is kind of just saying to us here. And we know that some of this is true because listen to what Boris Becker had to say. Do you remember him? He was a tennis star, used to be. And when he was at the top of his game, winning Wimbledons and winning tons of money and just being at the very top of the tennis world, here's what he had to say. He said, I had won Wimbledon twice before. As the youngest player, I was rich. I had all the material possessions I needed. It's the old song of a movie star and a pop star who commits suicide. They have everything, and yet they're so unhappy. I had no inner peace. I was a puppet on a string. That's what a man said who had millions and millions of dollars. Jack Higgins is an author of many successful novels. He was asked what he would like to have known as a boy. His answer was this, that when you get to the top, there's nothing there. And that's exactly what Solomon found out as well. Solomon spent many years of his life searching for satisfaction. He spent many years doing all kinds of different things, searching for satisfaction. And according to the world's standards, he should have been satisfied. Okay? According to the world's standards of what would bring satisfaction, what would bring happiness, he should have been satisfied. We'll talk about some of those things that he gained in his lifetime that we would seemingly think he would have found satisfaction. But as you read through the entire book of Ecclesiastes, which is, we're going to cover that today. Don't be scared. We'll be out here on time. But Solomon just searched for happiness, searched for satisfaction in so many things, and he yet never found it. In fact, he says everything is meaningless, worthless, and empty. Now, if you read, I don't know what version you're holding in your hands, but if you read the King James Version, the New King James, the ESV, or the New American Standard Version, they all translate the word that Solomon says to the English word, which is this, vanity. So we're going to stick with that today, okay? Vanity. And you're going to see that 38 times in the book of Ecclesiastes. Vanity of vanity, all is vanity. But we don't really use that word too much today, so we can just understand that it means this. It just means meaningless. It just means pointless. It just means it's like a vapor. I don't know if you remember a couple weeks ago, Pastor kind of talked a little bit. He just touched on this, and he said that it was like smoke. It just vanishes. It just disappears. And so Solomon uses the word vanity quite a bit. And today what I want to do in our time that's left is look at four areas that Solomon sought after satisfaction. And what I want you to do today is to identify in your own heart and in your own life if you have been looking for satisfaction in some of these areas. But we're not just going to stop there. We're going to look at what the result was of Solomon's searching and see if you can relate to the results as well. That's our goal today as we continue on. It's going to be a little bit of a downer message, but guess what? It gets better in the end. It's going to be like one of those movies. You watch, it's bad, and then at the end there's a great ending. So that's what's going on today. What I want to do to get there is look at the first thing that Solomon did to look for satisfaction. Now, I did something a little different. I put an outline in your bulletin, so if you're interested in taking notes, you are more than welcome to do so, or if you want to draw pictures, you can do that too. The first thing we're going to look at, Solomon searched for satisfaction in, was wisdom. Okay, so you can put that on your outline if you'd like. Solomon looked for satisfaction in wisdom. When you think of Solomon, what do you think of? You think he was wise, right? You think he was the most wise person, that he asked for wisdom. In fact, in 1 Kings 3:5, God says to Solomon, I'll give you anything. Kind of like a genie, right? I'll give you anything you wish. What would it be? And, we ask kids that just to see what their funny answers would be, right? A new car, a new dog, or something like that. But what would your answer be? What would you get if you could have anything you want? And to look at what Solomon said, let's look up at the PowerPoint and see what he had to say. Give me an understanding heart so that I can govern your people well and know the difference between right and wrong. For who by himself is able to govern this great people of yours? Solomon asked God for wisdom. And if you've understood this text before, you understand that God gave it to him. God gave him that wise and understanding heart. So much so that God says that there hasn't been anyone as wise as Solomon before him or after him, save Jesus Christ. Wow, what a privilege for Solomon. That's an amazing thing to think about, that he was the wisest person besides Jesus to ever live. What a gift he must have had to have that kind of wisdom. But then we look at verse 12 in chapter 1, and we see what he says about that. Ecclesiastes 1, verses 12. We're going to read all the way to 18. I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem, and I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It's an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and a striving after wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight. What is lacking cannot be counted. I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who are over Jerusalem before me, and my heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that this is also but a striving after wind, For in much wisdom is much grief, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. Solomon went looking for life's answers. He went looking to see what would happen in every scenario, every circumstance. He found as much earthly wisdom as he possibly could. If anybody was equipped to solve life's problems, it was Solomon. My belt just fell off my truck the other day. It got rainy and the belt slipped right off, and all of a sudden the truck didn't work. And it was so annoying because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to fix it. But my brother was here, and we Googled it, and then YouTubed it. And sure enough, together we were able to figure out how to put that belt back on. And I felt very wise at that time. I was like, yeah, I could figure this out. I felt pretty smart. But then I realized I was really dumb because there's 100 other things in that engine that could go wrong. And I have no clue how to fix those. And then there's some of them that YouTube won't help you for. You just got to take it in. But Solomon went out looking for wisdom. He went looking for every answer. And he found them. He says that, right? He says, I went looking and I found them. I got great wisdom. The more he increased in wisdom, the more he found out how difficult life was. T.S. Eliot says this, that all our knowledge brings us nearer to our ignorance. I felt that way this week. At this point in Solomon's life, it's not that he's warning us to not seek after wisdom. I don't want to stand here today and say, make sure you don't seek after wisdom, okay? Just be as dumb as you can be, and you'll be happy. No, that's not what Solomon's saying here. He's not saying don't go looking for wisdom. In fact, the Bible tells us we should be wise. The Bible tells us to seek after wisdom. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, right? We need wisdom. We need that for our lives. We just have to continue. That's why we have school. That's why we have college. We need to increase and grow in wisdom. But Solomon says this, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to just apply your life and your heart to just finding every answer for every single scenario. You've ever been around someone like that who knows everything? And you're talking about something, and then they chime in with what they know about it, and you almost feel like, I wish I really didn't know that. Now that I know that, it kind of changes things, and I don't really like it as much. Solomon found that out as well. He found out that the more wisdom he was gaining, the more dissatisfaction he was facing. And the result was much sorrow and grief. He sought after wisdom to satisfy him, and the more he gained, the more sorrow and grief he gained. So you might be wondering, what should we do with wisdom then? Well, you'll find out. Stay with me till the end. The second area that Solomon sought after satisfaction was in pleasure. Let's read Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But behold, this was also what? Vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? I searched my heart how to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. Solomon remembers back. He gives himself a test. He issues himself a test to try to find satisfaction. And this time it was pleasure. He wanted to see how he would respond if he was surrounding himself with pleasure, to see how he would feel towards pleasure that this life can offer. And so he looks after that. Now, what I want everyone to do is to close your eyes. Just sit back, close your eyes. And I want you to picture this if you can. Picture this as you close your eyes. Let your imagination wander. King Solomon is sitting in his banquet hall. Now, you got to remember, he was one of the richest person to ever live. He's sitting in his banquet hall, which must have been glorious beyond belief. And he's eating and drinking, and he's laughing with people around. And they're all doing the same thing, one big party. The most extravagant party, extravagant setting you can think of is probably not close to what it was like. He had wealth and popularity beyond comprehension. He knew that he did, and so he tried to satisfy himself by surrounding himself with these people who like to have fun, who like to drink, who like to laugh. But then, keep your eyes closed and think about it. Then the party's over. Everyone leaves. There's a mess laying around now that the servants have to clean up. And Solomon is sitting in his chair, all alone, pondering what just happened. Open your eyes, look at the screen. Here was the result. Emptiness. He just felt empty. Guys, we live in a world that is pleasure-seeking crazy. It's all about seeking pleasure today. Something to make you happy. Whatever that is for you, may be different for me, but people are just seeking pleasure. Whether that's in sports, Whether that's, again, in taking vacations, whether that's in going to parties, or maybe trying drugs to see what that will do, maybe trying to act or be like a Hollywood movie star, getting drunk, owning a lot of stuff, going to movies all the time, making a ton of money, buying a lot of stuff. People are seeking pleasure. That's why advertisement companies really work at it, because they know people are trying to be happy with their life, and they think getting more stuff is going to help them do that. I knew some guys when I was in college who worked at the job that I worked at. As soon as they got their paychecks on Friday, they were in the bar that night, just trying to have fun in life. That week of work was awful. Let's just go have fun Friday night. And then they'd come back in on Monday morning, and I knew that they felt emptiness, because you'd say, "Hey, how was your weekend?" What would they say? Terrible. Awful. But they just had all this fun, I thought, on Friday night with all their friends. But you know what? Pleasure doesn't bring satisfaction. Pleasure only brings emptiness. So as believers, we got to be careful. We just got to be careful. It's not that pleasure is wrong. In fact, I love pleasure. I love watching a movie. I love hanging out with the family. Used to go to the beach. Grabbing some dinner with the family. You know, we did things a lot just to have fun and to enjoy life. And those things are okay. But if we let those things replace, as a Christian, if we let those things replace our relationship with God, it's going to lead to emptiness. And that's exactly what Solomon felt. The next area he sought fulfillment in was performance. Let's read verses 4 to 6 together of chapter 2. I made great works. I built houses and I planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. Solomon surrounded himself with people who could help him do all these different projects. You can see what he did here. He built houses. He built vineyards. He built pools. He built all these different things. He engaged in a lot of different projects. He mentions at the beginning of verse 4 that they were great works. He could have been referring to a lot of things. If you study other portions of Scripture, you know that Solomon was involved in a lot of things. He could have been mentioning the fact that he built houses. Not just houses, but mansions. He just enjoyed building, and that's something that's fun to do. And I know there are people who are involved in that and really enjoy it. And so Solomon really enjoyed that. And so he would build mansions. But he didn't just build mansions. He even built cities. I'm not kidding. He built cities. There's a portion of Scripture, we don't have time to go there, but he built entire cities just to surround himself with projects. And maybe that would bring some sort of fulfillment, some sort of satisfaction. But yet we look at verse 11 of chapter 2, and he says this, Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, all was, what? Vanity, and a striving after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun. He spent a lot of time working, and in the end, the result was pointless. He felt like it was all pointless. He was never satisfied. Do you ever feel that way? Like you just work. That's a result of the fall. Do you know that? We just work. That's all we ever do. We work. We just don't feel satisfied. We get up every morning. That annoying alarm goes off. It's just another day. Case of the Mondays. Case of the Tuesdays. Case of every day. We just get up, we go to work, and we're there 8 hours or more sometimes. And we go home, we eat dinner, we go to bed. Guess what happens the next morning? Same thing. You get up, you go to work. Sometimes it just feels so monotonous to work, doesn't it? Why can't life be one big vacation? I've always wanted that. But no, we go to work. We just work. And Solomon realizes that when you do that, man, the result is just pointless. If that's what you're trying to put your satisfaction in at your work, that's just going to bring you to a point where you just feel like, man, this is so pointless. Maybe you've tried to get that promotion at your job. Maybe there's a position that's opening up, and you know that it's greater pay. It's a little more hours, but it's greater pay, and you know that'll be a great thing. So you work really hard, and you get on the boss's good side, and then that time comes where they're going to make a decision, and they choose you. And you're so pumped about that. And you're like, finally, some satisfaction in my life. I'm going to feel fulfilled. I'm going to be a boss over some people. How cool is that going to be? I got to tell them what to do. About 2 weeks in, you're like, man, I wish I had my old job back. Oh, there's too much pressure. There's too much stress. The money's okay. It's not too much more. That's exactly what Solomon felt. He just tried to do more. He just tried to be more promoted and do more things and build great cities. How cool would that be, guys? We're going to do that, actually, walk through Bethlehem. We're going to build a city. How would you like to build an entire city, step back and look and go, pointless. Why did I just waste all that time? That's exactly what Solomon was facing. And we're going to get to the reason why very soon, so hang with me. The fourth area that he tried to get satisfaction in was possessions. Possessions. Read verses 7 to 10 with me here of chapter 2. I bought male and female slaves. I had slaves who were born in my house. I also had great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines, the delight of the children of man. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. Just a reminder, I'm still the smartest man in the world. Look at all the stuff that he acquired. He acquired servants galore. He had so many servants that the servants were giving birth to other servants. He had baby servants. How does that work? But he did. He had more servants in his house. And he just acquired more and more female slaves, more male slaves. He acquired herds of cattle and flocks more than anyone before him. He acquired wealth in silver and gold. Silver wasn't a big deal then, but gold was huge. Look at the PowerPoint with me, and let's just read and just let your mouth drop open as you read all that Solomon had. The weight of gold that came to Solomon yearly was 666 talents of gold. Ironic that the number is 666, isn't it? He had 666 talents of gold. I tried to do some math on that. It's kind of hard to figure out how much a talent is worth today. But basically, a talent is about $1 million, roughly. So think about that. Yearly, he made $666 million. Yearly. How many is that? I should have done, how many is that a second? Probably made hundreds of thousands a second. Besides that, whoa, there's even more. From the traveling merchants, he made more than just that. From the income of traders, from Nike, from all the kings of Arabia, and from the governors of the country. And King Solomon made 200 large shields of hammered gold. 600 shekels of gold went into each shield. He also made 300 shields of hammered gold. 3 minas, which is 3 months' wages, of gold went into each shield. The king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. Just another one of his cool places he made. Moreover, the king made a great throne of ivory. This must have been cool. He overlaid it with pure gold. The throne had 6 steps, and the top of the throne was round at the back. There were armrests on either side of the place of the seat, and 2 lions stood beside the armrests. 12 lions stood there, one on each side of the 6 steps. Nothing like this has been made for any other kingdom. All King Solomon's drinking vessels were gold, and the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were gold, pure gold. Not one was silver, for this was accounted as nothing in the days of Solomon. For the king had merchant ships at sea with the fleet of Hiram. Once every 3 years, the merchant ships came bringing gold, silver, ivory, apes, and monkeys. So King Solomon surpassed all the kings of the earth in riches and wisdom and bananas. Now all the earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear his wisdom, which God had put in his heart. Each man brought his present. This is above and beyond the kings and everything else. Each man that would come to see him would bring his present, articles of silver and gold, garments, armor, spices, horses, mules, at a set rate, year by year by year. The richest man to have ever lived was Solomon. Look up any website, which I did, and it will tell you that. There's no one that's made more money than him. In fact, his net worth was $2.1 trillion. Just to give you a little understanding what that is. That's 11 zeros. That's his net. That was his net worth. He is the richest man to have ever lived. As a result of that, let's read verse 17. So I hated life. Don't you just want to, come here, you know how much we make? Come on. So I hated life because what is done under the sun was grievous to me, for all is vanity. Wow, I can't even believe this is happening. Here is a guy that he's just, like he brushes his teeth in gold water. I don't know. He could if he wanted to, right? His toilet's made of gold, everything. It's ridiculous. And he says, I hated life. That just blows me away that someone who makes that much can hate life so much. But it just helps you understand this, guys. Listen, satisfaction is not found in this stuff. That could have been 30 zeros. Who cares? Because satisfaction is not found in gaining things. Don't believe me? There's a guy in China right now. His name is Jack Ma. He's the richest man in China. And he owns a company that's just pouring in the money. He just did an interview with CNN not too long ago. And he described his wealth as this: a great pain. And he gave a ton of reasons why, but he said, I wish I didn't have this money. That's what he ended up saying. A great pain. Solomon says, I hate life. He had so many possessions, but no satisfaction. In fact, the result was this: no profit under the sun and a hatred for life itself. Now, if I ended the message there, we'd all go home sad and disappointed. We would think that life is not worth living. We would think that life is pointless because we don't make near as much as Solomon does. Our net worth isn't near as close as Solomon's. But I want to get to the encouraging part. And it's not just an encouraging part for you guys. It's an action step, which I think is always good to do, to go away with. So let's do this. Let's turn to the end of Ecclesiastes. We're going to skip the whole rest of the book because it's very depressing. So we'll go right to the end. This is the conclusion, okay? Now, if you look at verse 13, the first 5 words, the end of the matter, okay? Now, don't look anymore. Don't cheat. Solomon says this: life's pointless, life's meaningless. Here's what I tried to do. I looked after wisdom, didn't help. I tried to go after pleasure, pointless. I went after possessions, it didn't mean anything to me. He says this is the end of the matter, okay? This is the very it. This is it, okay? Now that I've said all that other stuff, this is it right here. This is my final statement. Are you ready? The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Fear God and keep His commandments. Here's what he's really saying: for this brings satisfaction. He sought after wisdom, that didn't work. He sought after pleasure, it didn't solve anything. He sought after performance of projects, wasn't enough to satisfy. He sought after possessions, but we know possessions don't bring happiness. What he concludes is this, is that vanity of vanities, all is vanity, unless you fear God and keep His commandments.
One of the biggest issues that you see in Scripture is this idea of the fear of God. I mean, the Bible says in Psalm 111, verse 10, he says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And it's not that there aren't a million other things to learn about God, but he says you've got to start with the fear of the Lord, because that's the beginning of wisdom. And so for me to be wise and begin to understand God, it starts with a healthy understanding of fear. And because in the church there was this trend where people were saying, that fear of God, that's kind of old school, this hellfire brimstone. We don't really do that anymore. So in church we start going, okay, yeah. Let's talk about the other areas of God. But if we skip the fear of God, we won't understand the other areas. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom.
And guys, that's the action step, okay? That's step number 1. I've got 2 quick ones here for you, okay? That's the action step, is to fear God. Now, it's easy for a pastor to come up here and say, fear God is your action step. And you're like, okay, fear God, I got it. All right, I'm going to go home, I'm going to fear God. What does that mean? And then we come back next week and we get another action step. So listen, here's what I want you to do. Look up at the screen. Here's what to fear God means. Okay, this is something that you can do. To respond to Him in reverence and awe. When Solomon sought after wisdom, he ended up saying, the more I knew, the more I hated life, the more I understood how difficult it was. Here's what he should have and could have done, is to say, the more I knew about life, the more I realized how much I should reverence and awe God. Because I am a sinful person. I'm completely sinful. And yet God still loves me. He still sent Jesus for me to save me from my sin. And that should be the response. To fear God means to be in reverence and awe to Him for how great He is. And yeah, life is difficult. I know that. Life is tough. You're all going through different things. I know that. And you may have questions, and the question why may still be in your mind. But our response cannot be, oh, life stinks, oh, life is terrible, life is pointless, God doesn't care, blah, blah, blah. God does care. God does have a reason. He does have a purpose. He's working all things out for your good. It may not be easy to understand, and there are things in my life I still don't know the answers to. That I'm still wondering what God did there and why He did it. But it doesn't matter, because the more I know Scripture, the more I fear God, the more I reverence Him. And then when I reverence Him first, then I turn around and I look back at those things I was questioning God about, and I say, well, I guess they don't really matter after all. Or at least I have a different perspective of these things. If something bad happens in your life and you look at it from your point of view, you're never going to be satisfied. It's not going to make sense. But when you look at your life through God's point of view, it still may not make sense right now, but you got to trust Him. And that's what reverencing and awing Him means. It means to trust Him and to respect Him for who He is. And that's so, if we gain wisdom, which we should, it should be that we gain wisdom to help reverence and awe God even more for who He is. The next thing that it means is to serve Him in purity of motion and action, or motivation and action. Solomon sought after pleasures. And you know what? He had possessions and he tried performance. You know what he could have done with all that stuff? He could have helped so many people. $2.1 trillion. Could probably help a few people, I'm guessing. But Solomon didn't do that. Not necessarily right away. What he could have done with that money is to serve God in purity of motivation and action. And that is a way that we can fear God. To shun evil and the sins which so easily ensnare us. People get caught up in pleasures and they get intertwined in it and they step in that trap and it grabs their leg and they can never get out of it. But to fear God means to say, I'm not even going to go anywhere near that stuff. I'm going to shun evil and the sins that catch me so easily. To worship Him and Him alone. People go after possessions as if they worship these things. People go after sports as if they worship these things. And when we do put our love and what we do put our value in, if we value sports, if we value possessions more than we value God, we're worshiping those things. Those things need to be replaced with a worship for God. And to say, I'm going to keep Him first. Yes, I need a new car, but I'm going to worship God first. I'm going to keep Him first and allow His guidance to be a part of my life. To recognize His hand at work in the big and the small things of life. That's huge, guys. And to completely surrender every part of your life to Him. Those are some action steps that you can take today. You can go home today and say, man, I've really been going after pleasure, and I know that's wrong. I should use the things that I have to give to the church, to give to the ministry here, to be a part of Fish, to be a part of other areas where I know that the church needs help, where people need help. God, you can really be used for God. You can really show your fear of Him by how you respond to the things that He does in your life, whether they're big things, whether they're small things, and just completely surrender every part of your life to Him. Those are some ways that you can fear God, but you also need to keep His commandments, which is the second part of what Solomon said. Fear God and keep His commandments. In Matthew 22, Jesus said the two greatest commandments are to love God and to love other people. Someone said once that your love for God is shown by your love for people. Want a life that satisfies? Then do this. Go down to the house of compassion and serve people in need there. I got to do that a week ago. And I'm telling you, you walk away satisfied because you're helping people. I know the Fish people feel the same way. When you're helping people, you get that satisfaction because you're being Jesus to them. And you're extending the love God has for you to them. Help serve. There are other ministries in this church where you can be involved. Walk Through Bethlehem's coming up. There's a way you can help serve. But there are ministries that are going on right now. Hey, why don't you go on a mission trip to Honduras? Isn't that a good idea? There's people that are doing that right now. And we need to be uplifting them in prayer as they're serving. But maybe you can't get out and do those things. Maybe you say, well, I can't really move around too much. Listen, you can pray, right? You can have a prayer ministry for others. You can be an encouragement to others. Did you ever notice something? Everything we talked about today with Solomon, if you notice, it was all about himself. Did you notice that? Everything that he tried to do to find satisfaction was about himself. But we got to get outside of ourselves. That's the whole mission of Jesus. To get outside of ourselves and to serve others and to love others. And guess what? That brings true satisfaction. As Francis Chan said, we got to learn to fear God and to love others. And loving others will be a motivation to fear God even more. If we fear God and we keep His commandments, we will then be satisfied with the life that God has given us. That is the conclusion of the matter. That is the end of the speech. That's the end of Ecclesiastes. Solomon says, you know what? All this stuff in my life that I was trying to go after to be happy was not working. But when I fear God and when I keep His commandments, then I am truly satisfied. When Solomon looked back on his life, he saw nothing but a mess. Nothing but disorganized pointlessness. But when he looked at it through God's point of view, it just changed everything. And that's my big encouragement for you today, is to get a perspective change. And not just look at life through your lens anymore and say, why is all this happening? Why is all this bad stuff going on in the world? I turn on the news and it's just constant bad stuff going on. Or even in my own life, nothing seems to be going right. Just can't get that raise. I can't get that job. I can't get that friend, that boyfriend, that girlfriend. I'm having trouble at home with the wife or with the husband. I'm having trouble with the kids. I just feel like my life's a mess right now. Listen, perspective change. Not that that's going to make everything all happy and joyous right away. But a perspective change will help you mentally understand what God is trying to do in your life. He's trying to get you to this. He's trying to get you to fear Him and to keep His commandments. That's what it all ends up boiling down to. Yes, we got to gain wisdom, but true wisdom only comes from God. The more wisdom we can gain from God, the more joy we experience. Yes, we can have pleasure, but only when we're in a right fellowship with Christ will anything be satisfying. Yes, we can work and have possessions. We have to. But we must realize from God's point of view that they're given to us by Him and that we should be responding in thankfulness and generosity. But the conclusion of the whole matter is to fear God and to keep His commandments. I hope you can remember those two things this week. Just want to close by looking up Luke chapter 10. Luke chapter 10. I cannot find it. Do you remember where that was, Lauren? Luke chapter 6? Bingo. Luke chapter 6, verse 24. Just want to close by reading this little passage real quick. I just want to say the invitation today is twofold. Okay? The invitation today is twofold. Number one, you cannot fear God and keep His commandments unless you have a relationship with His Son Jesus. You cannot fear God. You cannot understand life. You cannot have satisfaction in your life unless you have a relationship with Jesus. Here is what you're going to have. Luke chapter 6, 24. Woe to you who are rich, for you've received your consolation. If you're rich, that's what you get. Woe to you who are full now, for you shall be hungry. Woe to you who laugh now, for you shall mourn and weep. Woe to you when all people speak well of you, for so their fathers did to the false prophets. Listen, here's what Luke's saying here. He's saying what you have now is it. So enjoy that, because that's it. The car that you own is it. The house that you own is it. There's nothing else to look forward to after this life. But as a believer, we know, when I say that, red flags go up for believers. Because we know that life is totally different than that. In fact, here's what the Bible says. The Bible says that when you put your faith in Jesus Christ to save you from your sins, you now have a relationship with Him and the hope of heaven. Because heaven is the only thing you should be looking forward to. Not Monday, not tomorrow, not that new car. Those things are all great and well. But as a believer, as a Christian, you know that heaven is the thing that you're looking forward to. And if you don't have the hope of heaven, this is it. And we looked at today what Solomon has to say about all this stuff. If you had $2.1 trillion, that's all you're going to get. There's no hope of heaven after that. It's a plea from Solomon. It's a plea from the Lord today to say this to you. You may be sitting in here and you may be listening to this message. And you may be able to identify with some of these areas that you're looking for satisfaction and some of the results, but nothing's going to change unless you first put your faith in Jesus Christ.